Okay, I would like to call the General Committee meeting to order for September the 7th, 2023. And I'd like to welcome everybody watching at home and as well as those in attendance. And I would like to start with roll call. I am Lee Peterson, Chairman of the General Committee and Alderman for Ward 2.
Jim Waters, Vice Chair, Alderman, Ward 6.
Bob Garza, Alderman, Ward 3.
And also,
Sure. Jason Gallo, Administrative Services Director.
Jesse Eckenroth, Chief of Operations.
Mayor Jamie Clary.
thank you all for being here. And with that, I'd like to call this meeting to order. And also, I would like to change one thing on tonight's agenda, item number 7, discussion Nearwater Place development. They have deferred that for 60 days, so I would like to take that off of the agenda, that it will not be discussed tonight.
So moved.
Okay, I have a second from Mr. Waters or a motion from Mr. Waters and a second from Mr. Garza. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes. And what about the rest of the agenda as it reads? Can I get a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll move that we accept the agenda.
I second that.
Okay. Mr. Garza accepts the agenda, and we have a second from Mr. Waters. All those in favor of tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes unanimously. Okay, have you had a chance to review last month's minutes from August the 8th?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
I move we accept the minutes.
All right, I've got a motion to accept the minutes
And I'll-
from August the 8th,
And I'll second that.
and a second from Mr. Garza. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that is approved. Okay, we will move on to citizen comments. Did we have anyone sign up for tonight to speak?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move on to reports, and our first report is from Interim City Attorney. Mayor, can I get a point of clarification?
Sure.
Is Mr. Ray still an interim attorney?
He is.
Oh, when does he become a permanent attorney?
That's up to the board.
Recognize.
Back end of last year, the board made two decisions. Made a decision to hire Lance as the interim, and we had two objectives. One is that he handled the day-to-day legal needs for the city, and the second was that he prepare a report for what the city needs long-term from legal counsel. And what you see right here is the second of those, and that's the report. Obviously, he's been serving our legal needs for the past 10 months or so. And so the first step is to take a look at this report and determine if the board accepts this report. And then the next step is for me to go out and find somebody to fulfill those responsibilities.
Recognize Jesse.
Okay, all right, well,
Jesse. Recognize Jesse. He's going to talk about this.
okay. Yes, okay, I'm sorry I kind of veered on that one, but we do have a report from the city attorney regarding the legal needs of the city. And I believe, Jesse, are you going to speak on that?
Probably both of us.
Okay, all right, well, please go ahead.
Okay. So I think the summary of this is that Lance, after doing the job and researching the job and looking at how other people do the job in other cities, feels like the city can be best served by a part-time attorney similar to what we've been doing for 35 plus years. He does feel like having that person's responsibilities written out ahead of time is important, such as coming to which meetings and what their hours are going to be and when they come to City Hall and when they're available to staff. Even though they're part-time, it doesn't mean they choose when they're part-time. It means that they have they're supervised by Jesse, me, and the rest of the board. And I think that's a pretty good summary of what Lance feels like the city needs. Doesn't feel, to my surprise, I think to several people's surprise, that we need a full-time city attorney at this point. And you can see that in the report, the justifications of that. You can also see in there the different levels of pay for different cities and for the expectations from different cities. And probably most notable is the one from Mount Juliet. It seems to be the most similar to our situation. But that doesn't mean we have to follow what Mount Juliet does or any other city. It means that if the city feels that this report is something that we need to follow, then it's mine and Jesse's job to go out and find somebody to fulfill those responsibilities. And at this point, I would include Lance among the pool of candidates for that. But that's the next step. The first step is for the board to accept the report. Is that the right terminology, Jesse, to accept the report?
Yeah, at this point, it's receive and file.
There we go. Okay.
No action needed on it.
Okay, well, we have received the assessment report for the position of city attorney. Does this committee have any questions?
Please, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Waters, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor or Jesse, can you tell us Lance's thoughts on if we stick, well, like we are right now, his thoughts of staying on? Is it appropriate to ask that question?
Yeah, I think that the amount of time that he was anticipating is similar to what he is actually giving the city. I think in the report, he's a little over 22 hours a week. I believe he's enjoying working for the city, at least from my conversations with him, and he's pleased to be at the city.
Well, I tried to read through this best I could, and with a third grade education, I couldn't get too far, but I'm just kidding.
It was on fourth.
I'm concerned about his attitude. Is he okay staying on? I'm more concerned about him and I am us, okay?
Yeah, and you know, the report was really to give BOMA the information, whether it's Mr. Ray or another attorney. I think the direction from BOMA when Mr. Bradley announced his retirement was that it would be a good idea to have a report in front of BOMA from someone who comes in and kind of sees things with, you know, a fresh perspective, and to give a recommendation to BOMA on how the city could move forward. So that's what this is intended to do. And, you know, going through the process, I think Mr. Ray has found that, you know, what BOMA originally had anticipated about his hours per week is very accurate, very close to what he actually needs to perform the job of the interim city attorney. And I do think that Lance is pleased, you know, working with the board, working with staff. So he has made positive remarks on his tenure, his short tenure here at the city.
I'll add one thing, is when we initially talked about the possible responsibilities for the city attorney, one of the things I mentioned a couple times is somebody to lobby for us at the state level. Lance doesn't feel like that should be included in these responsibilities for the city attorney. He feels like that's somebody else. That's a different skill set.
Yeah, I read that too. Does ICA, does that control about everything as far as our attorney's concerned?
Yeah, Lance's role as an interim has, I mean, there's been a vast array of items he's had to handle since he's been here. We kind of threw everything but the kitchen sink at him, or maybe we did throw the kitchen sink as well. I mean, when you look at what he's dealt with since he's been here, you know, I think he was in court just on Tuesday with short-term vacation rentals, and he's had, you know, multiple things that have come across his desk that he's handled. So I think he's been able to experience kind of the breadth of what a city attorney would have to, you know, on a full-time basis, would have to perform. So he has handled the city business, you know, in its entirety. And Mr. Bradley did an excellent job handing off, kind of passing the torch on to Mr. Ray. And Mr. Ray made mention of that, of how helpful Mr. Bradley was to him. But, as the months have gone on, Mr. Ray hasn't had to rely on Mr. Bradley, and he's, for the last several months, he's just been on his own completely. So he's done a good job. Mr. Bradley did an excellent job with kind of passing the torch off.
He's been on the board how long? 2 years?
Oh, it's
How long has he been with us?
Since January. So he's
this
a little
year?
under a year. Yes, sir.
So he'll have an anniversary in January.
Yes, sir.
We'll be looking. Do you feel like he's happy being here now? I mean, you're with him more than I am.
I do. I think Lance enjoys it. I think maybe he thought it wasn't going to be quite as dynamic as it is, because the public just doesn't see a lot of the things that happen and that kind of we have to deal with behind closed doors. So I think he's been pleased with the amount of activity and kind of the interest of the activity, and he's expressed that he likes working here, and he likes kind of all the different items he's gotten to deal with since he's been here.
And I've seen similar behavior as what Jesse's describing. I think he enjoys it, and I think he'd like to continue.
Okay, thank you.
Will we be voting or looking to vote on this at the next BOMA?
You want to do that?
So we would take this as a receive and file to BOMA as well. Again, Lance tried to do Mr. Ray tried to do a good job of writing this objectively and just giving some information to BOMA for whether he's in the pool of candidates or another person, but just giving BOMA some good information. So absolutely, we will have it on as a receive and file for BOMA, and there's no action needed except that we're just going to receive it and file it. Whatever direction the board gives to the mayor to go out and get a city attorney, I think this will be a very, very good document for us to work from, and then a recommendation will be brought back to BOMA for a full-time attorney.
Or, no, you mean not a full-time attorney, but for a permanent attorney.
Yeah, full-time, part-time.
One
Permanent,
more.
part-time.
Permanent full,
So-
part-time, permanent part-time.
Yes.
So what I'll do is if the board receives and files this, what I'll do is I'll go and I'll look at all the folks that applied 10 months ago, 10, 11 months ago, including Lance, and I'll see if we've got a good candidate there, and then I'll come in with a nominee to the board pretty soon after.
Okay.
My only last question, when I look at the budget of Hendersonville and Gallatin, they got a full-time, are they that busy? Are they involved in more than we are?
I think one of the distinctions made in here is that there are some cities that have utilities. Utilities require a greater deal of attorney time. If there's, any type of property that you have to take for utilities, utility billing, our city doesn't have that except for stormwater, but our stormwater is very straightforward. So any city that has utilities is going to utilize more city attorney time. I think after reading the report, I think that the city can be assured that we've gotten a very good deal on our city attorney over the years, and that our budget on an annual basis compared to other cities, it seems to be that we're pretty efficient with our use of our city attorney.
Okay.
But I feel like we're also pretty efficient with the use of our directors and our staff, is that with Jason's background and Tamara's background, the background of so many people on our staff, there are a lot of items that are handled by city attorneys in other cities that our department heads handle, and our staff do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you're welcome. Jesse, I think this is an excellent job description for the city attorney. And you're right, Mr. Bradley did leave big shoes to fill, but I think Lance is filling those quite nicely. Mm-hmm. He's been practicing law for 19 years, and he was even a former board of mayor and alderman. So I think Mr. Ray is a perfect candidate for this job, and maybe that is something that we need to bring up in BOMA this month, an ordinance to appoint Lance Ray as permanent city attorney. And I would like to sponsor that if that's the steps we need to take.
So really what it comes down to is just a motion by me. And I make a nomination and the board chooses to accept it or not. It's just one reading, that's the way to, and that's as far as it goes. If you wanted to do that, certainly you could make such a motion. I would like to have a little bit of time to look back at all the applications that we received. That's the way I would prefer to do it, but anybody on the board could make a motion to have me do something different.
Okay, sounds good to me. Thank you for providing this assessment report for the position of city attorney. That is good to have for the record. Okay, is there any more discussion on that report? If not, let's move on to ordinances and resolution. And the first one we have is Resolution 2023-29, a resolution establishing a code of conduct for members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
So move.
Mr. Clary, you are sponsoring this. Would you like to expand on that?
I'll just say that I'm not married to any of these items on here. It's a combination of comments from staff, aldermen, the public, former aldermen, and in this committee. I'm not married to any of them, but I do think that the residents of Hendersonville want a code of conduct for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. It might only be one or two of these that end up still in there. It might be 13, it might be 12. But I'll assure you that I will be taking something, I'll either be taking this or something similar back to the full board, because I think that we should have an up or down vote on a code of conduct. But I'm not married to any of these items in there. I'm certainly open to change, open to amendments, adjustments, adaptations.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I totally agree. Go ahead, Mr. Waters.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 or 3 here that I've put a big X by. I don't know what that X is for, but I did it anyway. Number 8, does anyone have a copy of this? I don't
We
have to,
do.
Do I have to read it?
No.
I just need some clarification on avoiding the use of profanity. That's so a curve. I don't understand. We've never done nothing like that, as I recall, and I don't think the people that come for citizens' comments, they do it either.
I think that's wonderful.
Do we have to put that in there?
It was something that came to me, and I think it's worthwhile having it in there. Obviously, if we've never had a problem and we tell people that they shouldn't do it, we probably won't ever have a problem.
I know what you're saying, but I think it looks pretty good for the backbone of the code of conduct, because, you know, you don't want someone to start cursing, so there's nothing in here that says I can't.
Okay.
And there's a lot of curse words that are pretty, you see on TV, so, you know, regular TV, not even, you know, the cable station, so I'm not against it.
Okay, okay, just asking. Number 3, promptly return calls, emails, and city-related communication from residents. I have a problem with that one. The calls I get, I immediately return in Ward 6. You know what the first thing they say? I called City Hall and I got a recording that they would call me right back, and they never do. So this should pertain to city administration as well as aldermen.
Well, does the city have its own code of conduct separate currently?
Employees do.
We have an expectation that phone calls are returned promptly.
Pardon?
City staff has an expectation that phone calls are returned promptly.
Well, maybe they're not living up to them, because I'd say 8 out of 10 when I return the calls, that's the first thing they say. I called so-and-so, I called so-and-so, I get a recording, they call me right back. They don't do it. That's the reason they call me.
That's the reason they call me.
Yeah. So,
But let me, I'm sorry, Jim, but I think it should be in here from us, because Ward 3 had someone in the past who's no longer on there, in the ward, obviously, and the biggest complaint I got when I was campaigning was she never called anyone back, and it wasn't Arlene.
yeah.
So,
Well, I feel sorry for an alderman that won't return their constituents' calls, because
well, they're not very
they
good. are
put
they?
you here and they can take you out right quick, okay?
That's right.
But when they tell me that, thank you for calling me back, but I called City Hall twice, maybe, recording. So I just like for you, Jesse, or Mayor, to address it to your staff. And that's all I want to say about that one.
We do occasionally have people that call and ask to talk to they call in the middle of the day and ask to City Hall and ask to talk to the alderman. And we have to explain that the aldermen don't have an office here.
Right.
And sometimes we do get those messages left overnight too.
They're not from Ward 6, over, are they?
They're from all over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I thought we had, there was recommendations at BOMA.
They're in
To-
here.
Where are they?
The first one, and then the 13th one.
What page?
Look at page 8 there.
8? Is that the only addition we had was 13 and
No, I mean, number 3, I'm sorry.
3
Number 3. was-
13?
Yeah, not number 1, number 3.
Because I wanted to make sure that we had the correct language so we can include that and then send this back to BOMA. So it was number 3.
Yeah.
Which reads, promptly return calls, emails, and city-related communications from residents. And we wanted to change it to promptly return telephone calls, emails, and all other city-related communications from residents. That just kind of cleaned that all up, and I wanted to make that change for number 3.
I agree.
Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Waters to change number 3.
Chairman Peterson,
Yes?
I think we have someone who'd like to make a comment.
Yes, you can. Be sure to turn on that mic, please.
If it turns green,
Oh,
you're
there
good.
it is. Are we on? Yep. Hey, can you hear me now? Great. Hey, thank you very much, Chairman, for letting me speak to this. This ordinance, I've read it, and since it was presented at BOMA a couple weeks ago, I feel like we're looking at more of a job description than a code of conduct, because I'm looking at the roles and responsibilities we're all given in our little pamphlet. And it has in here, regularly attend the meetings, participate in at least one standing committee meeting, attend workshops, town halls, and special call meetings. I feel like that the code of conduct is not necessary. I feel like each one of us has within us the ability to regulate ourselves based upon our energies and our desires and what we feel is important. So as soon as we start addressing codes of conduct for grown men and women, we are looking at curbing behavior. I feel that the role of BOMA is not to necessarily curb its members' behavior. You can have a perfectly well-behaved liar, but that's not addressed in here. I think what you want to look at primarily is the ethics aspect. I think our focus should be moved to the ethics aspect of members of BOMA, because the ethics goes to the character of the individual, not just their behavior. So I would encourage the Board of General Committee here to reconsider this. It has ethics in it, noted in here, but I would encourage the board to reconsider spending time on a code of conduct where it controls your behavior, not necessarily what the characteristics of the board members are. For instance, we're all elected to provide a positive impression of the city of Hendersonville. That goes without saying. That's you, me, everyone. Attend meetings that might be helpful to becoming familiar with issues and ideas pertinent to the city. That is important as your job description as an alderman. Be prepared for board meetings and committee meetings. That is something we should do if we wanted to do our job well. So I really, I appreciate the efforts. on this. I know in the past, we've had, quite verbose debate on the board, but I think it's good. I think debate is good. I think, and at times unruly debate is good. It exercises legislation. It exercises the mind, it exercises the heart to get to a better decision. Okay?
Respond.
Thank you all for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now respond.
Yes.
Now respond to.
Yes, you sure can.
Well, I disagree with what he said, but I respect him. As we started at the very beginning, the mayor said these was taken from people that sent them in. He didn't make these up. I didn't make them up. They sent them in to us, our residents, our constituents. So to change it from codes to whatever you said would be a slap in the face of these people. So I disagree with what you're saying. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and I'm going to expand on that, and I do appreciate Mr. Bergdorf's comments. I would like to clean this up as it was asked us from BOMA. It was sent back to us to clean up the language. I would like to do that tonight, and then once we do send it back to BOMA, I would appreciate Mr. Bergdorf to speak on this again and let the board decide how we want to pursue.
This has been cleaned up. Those changes that we talked about at the last meeting have been changed on this new code of conduct.
Is that on page 12? Because didn't we want to add, I don't have that,
It's page 8 under the.
is it page,
Reflected on page 6.
oh, yes, it is on number 2, because we did add the laws and constitution.
Yeah.
And then number 3 was city-related communications.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then that is good.
Yeah.
And
All
there was,
right.
and there were some comments made during the board's meeting about some other possible changes, but nothing else was approved as an amendment from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Okay, I think it was just number 2 and 3, correct? And number 13,
Yeah, number 13.
2, 3, and 13. And those have all been corrected here on page 6. Okay, well, do we have,
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
go
just
ahead.
one more note. And Mark, thank you for speaking. I just wanted to add one thing to what you said. A code of conduct in here is like Jim said, is to help the citizens have a guideline for us, but nowhere in here does it curtail debate. Debate's wonderful. Now, debate with curse words wouldn't work in here, but debate is wonderful, so I just want to add that to your statement. That's all I got.
okay. All right, well, do we have any more comments or discussion about Resolution 2023-29?
Not me.
Okay, well, if there's,
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
thank you. I have a proper motion from Mr. Garza and a second from Mr. Waters. All those in favor of Resolution 2023-29, establishing a code of conduct for members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Okay, we will move on now to item number 2, that is reading of ordinance 2023-20, an ordinance requesting citizens to determine by election whether to adequately fund public safety, infrastructure, parks, and paving in the city of Hendersonville by a small increase in sales tax of a half a penny per dollar for only 10 years.
Mr. Chairman, I yield my time to our speaker at the podium. He wants to make a comment on the amendment.
Yes, we have several sponsors on this, and we have with us Alderman Eddie Robertson. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Mayor. if it, in looking at the budget, and as chairman of the Capital Projects Committee, I see this more acutely than maybe some others. But I see the storm clouds gathering that if we don't do something this year, next year's budget, we're going to be faced with a dilemma. That dilemma based upon estimated and actual cost in expenses versus projected revenues already for this year, that we're going to be faced with either severely cutting the services that this city provide or raising property taxes. That's if we do nothing, if we wait. If we move now, we give the citizens an opportunity to vote for a small increase in sales tax, and it, in my view, takes off of the table the need for a property tax increase. I refer to this ordinance. Most of the times we just give ordinances numbers, but I don't think that we should refer to this ordinance as a number. I refer to it as the Hendersonville Investment in the Future Act. And that's what it is. You know, is our city worth an investment by its citizens for the future? And I believe that it is. A couple of things in this ordinance that I would like to point out that I think are unique in such ordinances across in the state. One is we are instituting for the first time, and I'm not aware of any other city or county implementing a sunset provision in this ordinance. Now, what that means is in 10 years, if the citizens vote for this small increase, a half a penny increase in sales tax, in 10 years it goes away unless the people again elect to move forward. Right. So I think that is an excellent accountability aspect of this ordinance, and one that I don't know that has been replicated across the state. So that's the first thing. If the citizens approve this, we've got 10 years to show the citizens how this money is spent on infrastructure, on paving, on public safety, and on parks. And the ordinance specifies that. The second thing it does, it allows for transparency, which is very important in government. Now, how does it provide transparency? If you look at the whereas, section 3 on the whereas, each year the mayor,
Page 14.
each year the mayor in his or her budget will be required to itemize the incremental increase that this additional half a penny tax has generated on how it is being spent for public safety, for infrastructure, for parks, and for paving. So each year he or she's going to have to itemize to the board and to the public. So that provides full transparency. So we've got a sunset provision. We've got a budgetary line item that we'll be able to see where that money's being spent. And this, I think, will ensure that this tax, if approved, is being spent where we intend for it to be. So I'm very proud to be sponsoring this. I worked with Lance very hard on this language. I do have an amendment that I would like to make, and I'll have more comments when this goes to the board. But again, since I've been on the board, I have not voted for a property tax increase. Board, I do not want to have to vote for a property tax increase because I'm afraid that would put some of our citizens the possibility of them giving up their home, and I don't want to do that. So this is the alternative. And we have to act now because the legislation that requires the citizens to approve it, we've got to move now so that we can have an answer by the mid-year budget review. So that's why there's an urgency for us to act. if you'll look on, to me, the most important part of this ordinance of the Hendersonville Investment for the Future Act is after Section 7. In other words, what's going to be on the ballot? What are people going to read when they go to the voting booth and vote on this very small half a penny increase in their sales tax? And I would like for this committee to consider an amendment, I think that, which would replace what you see with this language. And I believe our city attorney has sent that to the members of the board to give you a heads up that I'm going to be at. So here's what I would say that will be on the ballot when this goes to the people. Shall the Hendersonville Investment in the Future Act, which increases the city's sales tax by a half a penny per dollar for 10 years for the purpose of funding public safety, infrastructure, parks, and paving, be approved, period. I don't want any legalese. I want it just as simple and easy to understand, and I think that the inclusion of a half a penny per dollar is much easier to understand than 2.25 to 2.75. So I think that this makes it simple, it's to the point, it specifies where the money's going to be spent, and it specifies the number of years that this increase will be allowed for the Hendersonville Investment in the Future Act. So I would like for this committee to consider that amendment. And with that, I urge that this committee, and we already have, I think, 7 sponsors, and I really appreciate several of the sponsors are in this room tonight, but we could use more. It would tickle me pink. You heard that expression. It would tickle me pink if we had 13 sponsors for this to allow the citizens of our city to determine the future of our city. Not politicians, but the people of this city to determine its future. And with that, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'm available for questions. If not, I hope that we get a positive recommendation from this committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, me? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Alderman Robinson.
Does that make sense?
Just stay right there. You must be from Ward 6, are you?
Makes sense.
I am. I'm proud to be your junior alderman.
You're my buddy. This may be going to the mayor, to Jesse, or even to you. If this is approved, will it come up next BOMA meeting? I think what I'm trying to say is, what kind of time limit do we have to get it on the commissioner's budget, the election?
So it won't come up at our next BOMA meeting. That's a week from now. It will come up at the one after that, which will be 3 weeks from now. The Finance Committee will look at this also 3 weeks from now. But this gets it in front of a committee, and then we have the 2-week pause, and so we won't rush that.
Does the county have election this year?
County has 3 elections next year. The first one is in March. What I will do simultaneously as we move through this process of this right here is I will bring an ordinance to the board asking to fund a special election, which will enable us to have more funds for paving roads for some of the projects that are in here. Ideally, we could have this before the mid-year budget. Ideally, we could have an answer on the referendum before the mid-year budget amendment comes to us, and so we have a better idea of what our finances are going to look like.
But the citizens of Hendersonville will not be able to vote until next year, right?
Well, I would like to ask the Election Commission to put this on the ballot on a special election as soon as possible, which could be
Good.
November, December, or January.
Yeah, good. I like it for 2 reasons, Mayor and Jesse and Eddie. The city gets, the people of Hendersonville get to make a decision. We don't. Just like we did in term limits. It went over like gangbusters, and I think this is the reason it went over like gangbusters. They had a chance to vote for this. If they don't want it, they can vote it down. That's what I like about it. And I like everything, I like your amendment. It's great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jesse.
Do you just want to note?
Yes.
Eddie, I like what you said, and I'm gonna add something to it.
Okay,
It's very long, and I like it, but if you break it down, it spells Haifa.
okay.
So in addition to having the word this long across all the ballots, you can parentheses it so it gets known as Haifa down the road.
This is the Haifa
Hendersonville
Act.
Investment in the Future Act.
The Hendersonville Investment for the Future Act. Our city's worth the investment.
That's right.
And if we approve, if the citizens approve it, we're going to be able to pump a lot more money in paving by the mid-year budget.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, how much does a referendum cost the city?
It's probably somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000. We'll find out.
Okay.
But the impact, if you turn to the back of the sheet, the impact, the possibility of $8 to $9 million per year. So you think about that in the neighborhood of $750,000 per month. If we sped this up by 2 months and possibly paid $40,000 and received $1.5 million in return, that's a pretty good return on investment.
I'll take that investment.
Yeah. And if I could add one more item.
Yes.
I think it's important, what Mr. Waters said just a second ago, and Eddie alluded to a little bit, is we are not enacting a increase in the sales tax. We are giving the public the opportunity to help us determine the future of the city. Is the sales tax something they want, or for us to continue to head down a road where a property tax is almost imminent? Again, we're giving the, just as we did with term limits, we're providing an opportunity for the voters to decide.
Make a motion.
I have one question about sales tax. So would that include all items?
So, yeah, you want to do that, Eddie? You know it better than anybody else.
No,
You don't get any gas.
Good gas. No.
No, there are exceptions in the law, and Blance can provide those exceptions. But one clear exception is gasoline. That is exempt from this, so it won't affect the price of gasoline one bit.
All right.
And if the legislature ever eliminates sales tax from groceries, then it would eliminate, right now, the sales tax on groceries subject to check, Jesse, is 4.5%. Is that accurate? Do you know what the sales tax for food is?
I think it's 4%. Yeah, it's not as high. I think it's 4% at the local level.
Okay. So there are some exceptions to the law, gas being the biggest one, but maybe by the time this reaches the board, maybe staff can provide those exceptions in its report on this ordinance of Hendersonville Investment for the Future Act.
I'm not going to do it tonight, but I'd probably like to get this broken down just a little bit because I would like for BOMA to discuss making grocery items exempt from this. I don't know if we want to include that.
It's my understanding from talking with general counsel or city attorney that we don't have that flexibility.
Okay, so we can't pick and choose taxes?
No. No, we would have to go to the legislature with a special act asking them to give us our cities. And I'm not opposed to doing that. But according to our city attorney, we don't have the statutory authority to pick and choose.
Okay. Well, do we have the authority to include, along with infrastructure, parks, public safety, and
Paving.
paving, Saunders Ferry Road?
Well, interesting you should mention
And
that
I
because.
do that in
Yeah.
honor of Pat Campbell, whose main focus on this earth was to improve Saunders Ferry Road. And I want to do that in his honor, and it's probably the most traveled, worst road in the city. And I would like to maybe set aside a portion of this to make those changes, improvements, and corrections.
Well, that's the infrastructure aspect of this ordinance of the Hendersonville Investment for the Future Act. And I support that, and I would be glad to be a co-sponsor to move that if this is approved by the citizens. But I agree with Sanders Ferry Road, but I also agree with Stop 30. Those are the two, to me, those are the two projects, our own staff will tell you, that need the most attention because of the traffic and the potential danger to the citizens.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
I mentioned that we'll need to have an ordinance brought to the board to appropriate money for for a special election. What I might do also is maybe list in there some of the highest priorities for the board, which would essentially work as a resolution in that situation. Just say that those are our priorities with the money if this passes. It's not going to be on the wording of the ballot, but I think it puts us out there as far as being accountable to what the highest priorities are to spend on that money.
And one additional thing that, we've got the chairman of the Public Safety Committee. If we don't do something, we're not going to be able to fund the equipment that our fire department and the police department need next fiscal year. We're just not going to have the money to do it. So, if we want to maintain the high level of public safety that this city does, and we're, Mayor, rated by several organizations in the top 50 safest cities in America. If we want to continue that trend, we've got to make the investments in our police and fire, and this in Hendersonville Investment for the Future Act does that.
Thank you, Alderman, for presenting this ordinance. I do want to reread the amendment so we can properly vote on that. And this is following Section 7 on page 15. The amendment is, shall the Hendersonville Investment in the Future Act, which increases the city's sales tax by a half a penny per dollar for 10 years for the purpose of funding public safety, infrastructure, parks, and paving, be approved. So I just wanted to include that amendment in this ordinance. Now, we need to vote on the amendment first, and then we can go back to the original ordinance.
Repeat the amendment, please.
Yes, I will repeat that.
And where are you putting that at?
It's after Section 7. There is on page 13, shall ordinance number blank.
15?
Page 15, right after Section 7, this is going to read, shall the Hendersonville Investment in the Future Act, which increases the city's sales tax by a half a penny per dollar for 10 years for the purpose of funding public safety, infrastructure, parks, and paving, be approved.
The amendment that actually Eddie brought, which you're bringing to us,
Do what?
adding the Hendersonville in there?
Yes.
You gotta-
This is the language that Lance
Right.
emailed us today.
Yeah, I'll motion that we approve that amendment.
Okay.
Second.
All right, I have a proper motion to approve the amendment from Mr. Garza and a second from Mr. Waters. All those in favor of this amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes unanimously. All right, we will go back to the original ordinance, and that is referred to as the Hendersonville Investment in the Future Act. And if I can get a
I'll
motion.
make a motion. We approve this and send it on to Bowman.
And I'll second that motion.
Mr. Waters has made a proper motion to send that on to full recommendation to BOMA, and I have a second from Mr. Garza. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes unanimously. And we will forward that with a positive recommendation to BOMA. Okay, let's move on. to item number 3, and that is reading of ordinance 2023-21, an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code, Title 14, Chapter 1, regarding video recording of municipal planning commission meetings.
That's a move.
And I'll second it.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Martin is the sponsor on this, and he is with us tonight if anyone wanted to ask him.
No.
No?
I do have a
Sorry for
question.
coming.
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Jesse, if you want to answer, if you can answer it, if you can't, you can say no.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Excuse me. When I look at this one and also 22,
Yeah.
my question is, the two together, are we going to have a price increase after we do this?
Well, I can speak to the one that I'm sponsoring, and that's just for the planning commission. And it essentially says, you know, when we record it like we already do, we're going to include exhibits and site plans and stuff. And I think that's already funded. The second one may have a question of bringing in additional meetings.
But my question, and maybe Jesse can answer it, will there be any kind of an increase in price or rates if we approve both of these?
I'm sorry. If we approve both of them, I would recommend that. This ordinance, we currently do this. This would be codifying what we currently do. This would put it in our code, so it's not an optional thing. It's not something we could pass on. So, you know, it's kind of akin to payroll. We have multiple backups for payroll because we have to do payroll. So as we have more requirements that we have to do, I would want to make sure there's, you know, some backups in place for AV equipment. And we'll get into that a little bit in the AV discussion. But for the Planning Commission, we currently already perform live streaming and the exhibit. So this is a standalone. I wouldn't expect it to really have any impact to the budget.
You didn't answer my question. Are we expecting an increase in cost on these two items?
On the two items,
Yes.
I would for the two items together, I would propose that we have additional backup for staff to do AV, and it would come at a cost. For item, if you're talking about item 4 and item 5,
Yeah.
that's not something that BOMA has to approve. I would absolutely recommend it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That was a good point, Mr. Waters, because I think I was going to address that with the next ordinance. So that was ordinance 2023-21, and that's to include video recordings and live streaming of the Planning Commission meetings. Is there any more discussion on that ordinance? Seeing none, I would like to entertain a motion.
I'll move to we accept this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Mr. Garza and a second from Mr. Waters. All those in favor of ordinance 2023-21, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That will go to BOMA with positive recommendation. Okay, let's move on to item number 4, and that's ordinance 2023-22. This is an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code, Title 2, Chapter 1, regarding video recording of other board and committee meetings. And under Section 2, that's including Public Board of Adjustments and Appeals, Citizen Stormwater Appeals Board, Deer Herd Monitoring and Control Committee, Hendersonville Board of Parks and Recreation, Hendersonville Industrial Development Board, and the Municipal Board of Zoning Appeals. And I think what this is doing is just including every committee and every public meeting be televised and live streamed. And yes, Mr. Waters, to answer your question, currently we have one audiovisual person who conducts these meetings for the city, and I can't speak for the city. I don't know if we would need one or two more. But yes, there would be a cost with additional staff. I don't know if there's someone already in the city that can do this as part of their job description, or if someone new would have to be brought in and put in that place. But yes, there will be a cost. I don't know what that is, but I would ready for discussion
Could
on
finance
this.
answer that question?
Yes, we could ask finance. I don't mean to put anyone on the spot.
I do.
Okay. Tamara, would you like to, or Jesse?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind
at all.
answering it.
If you've got a ballpark, I think this is needed. It's part of being transparent and just keeping the citizens informed of what the city is doing on their behalf. And I think it's critical that all of these meetings be broadcast or videoed or live streamed or you know, whatever the process is. But I know it would be a cost to have that available.
Yes, and I'll use the example of admin services. You know, Jason Gallo's done a really good job, and we have 4 people who can run payroll because it's not abnormal that someone's on vacation, someone gets sick, and then you need a third person. And if someone leaves the city unexpectedly, and it's good to have, you know, as many as possible. So if these are not a nice to have, but a must have, I would want to make sure that we had adequate depth so that if someone's on vacation, because the meetings now are not scheduled every other week, these meetings would happen routinely, special called meetings. So we would need to have the availability to have multiple staff available at any point to have these meetings, and a lot of these meetings are after hours. So I would anticipate a full-time staff person and having at least 2 staff members at City Hall trained as backups, with a third who could come in and, you know, at least on a rudimentary level, handle this. So I would anticipate with salaries and benefits, that's probably about $100,000. We looked at AV equipment, and Jason Hollers has really put a lot of this equipment together on his own. And I'll go into more discussion on that when we get into the AV discussion. You know, we do have what we'll call, you know, the tech gremlin that'll come up and the audio will hit us, or we've worked through a lot of those issues in the AV room that Jason sits in. The audio is the one that's still outstanding. You know, for displays in the room, even for people who are here, it's difficult on that side of the room to see the screen on this side of the room. So, you know, we think with some audio and some AV upgrades in here, that'll probably run about $25,000 to do that. You know, and the projectors, I think 2017, is it a 2017, the projector? We're getting a bid on that right now too to upgrade that, so there's more clarity to it. But there could be a cost for equipment, and absolutely for staffing needs, because if this is going to be a requirement for all these committees, we would want to make sure that we can provide that service. So I would anticipate around $100,000 in salaries and benefits.
Okay,
May I?
thank you.
May I?
Yes, sir.
Jesse, excuse me, the figure you just gave us just now, I'm just now realizing what you said. Are you talking about that much just for these 6? Just for these 6 here?
So this has been very difficult for us to come up with a solution for this, because we are not because not because there are 6 committees being added, but we want to make sure from a staffing level, now it's our job to make sure all these committee meetings can be live streamed. We have the exhibits up. we only have one person right now at City Hall who can run that full room, and that's Mr. Hollers. So he schedules his vacation around the meetings. At a point where we start to add additional meetings, we can't always, we can't tell Jason you can never be gone. In the past, we had a 1099 vendor come in. They had very, very simple recordings. They would record it on a DVD and then post it to YouTube the next day. So we won't have to do electronic voting and those types of things. And the after hours, they couldn't always make. So it's not just that we're adding 6 committees. The Planning Commission, we already do, but it's in order to provide and ensure we can provide the stability to always have someone here. Right now, we're somewhat vulnerable with only having one person who can run that full room. So when we start to add, when we have to add, the electronic voting and the exhibits and those types of things, then it's going to require someone besides Jason to run that AV room. We are trying to run very efficiently at City Hall right now. So if we pull someone from City Hall and train them on these things and stick them in these committees, it will be at a cost to what they're currently doing. Most of the departments will feel stretched thin as it is right now. We don't have necessarily extra positions at City Hall who are looking for things to do because we keep them busy. So it's a combination of adding these things and just ensuring that we have the stability, even with the standing committees and BOMAs, to have someone besides Jason who can run the room.
So in essence, you're going to have to hire another IT person.
Yeah, and one of the options that we looked at too is it doesn't take a full-time person to run these extra committees. This isn't a 40-hour-a-week job to add these committees. But to get the stability of a person who can always be here for these meetings, that is the best way to ensure that. So, we thought of other ways we could utilize the position. We have a PIO officer. We just have one. There are a lot of videos and a lot of things we don't do simply because we don't have the capability to do that. So we looked at ways that, if we bring someone on, we would not only have them do these types of things, but we would also probably expand the video offerings that we can do, expand our public information that we can do, because this person could be utilized for more than just these committees.
So when I looked at the parks and recreation, aren't they already on the, I watch them all the time.
Yes, so they are, but it's not a requirement to have them. Now, if we add them, it will be a requirement. So we don't have the option of, right now it's nice to have them on, but there's nothing in our municipal code that requires the Parks Board. It doesn't require the exhibits to be on. It doesn't require, the cameras moving around. So if it is, a requirement, we would want to make sure we can meet that requirement. And so we'd want to ensure not only do we have someone who can do it, but if that person is gone, do we have someone else who can step in and do it? And in the event someone's on vacation, someone's sick, do we have someone else who can step in because it's now a requirement that we must do it? So it's trying, and BOMA can say, no, we could just do it on the existing staff that we have. It just means that there's other things that we won't be doing. We'll pull away from other projects that we're currently doing.
Why would you want to put the deer herd monitoring on there? I mean, what's the big deal about that?
Well, this is not my ordinance, but I think the sponsors are here and they're probably more than happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, let's hear from them.
Huh?
Let's hear from them.
I don't care. I'm just asking. I hate to vote against you, but I ain't gonna vote for this one. Thank you.
Yes, our sponsors are here, Alderman Collins and Bergdorf. Would you like to speak on behalf of this ordinance?
Sure. What I would like to say is that, and I think that I can safely say that Alderman Bergdorf and myself are very like-minded on this. We feel like transparency is an essential function of government. And I know we all agree with that, but at what level of transparency? And for us, the value is there in providing these extra committees be recorded and live streamed and then subsequently published. We also find value in the documents being available to those who are watching from home. We understand that you may not value this minute of a level to be, you may not think that the value is there. And that's a decision that we will make at BOMA and respect each other's opinions on that. Mr. Waters, absolutely respect that you don't agree with the Deer Herd Committee being on there. Specific to the Deer Herd Committee, I feel like that's going to be a big issue for us coming up. And so to have people have access to watch the committee level meeting will provide helpful information to the community. There were a couple, I didn't think we could make amendments at the committee level, but since we did, there were a couple of things that were probably clerical issues that I just noticed before the meeting today. One is that we wanted the video stream, and I don't actually have the document, I didn't print it, but when it's live broadcast and then published, we just want to add the word unaltered to that. Video recording, section 2-102. We just want to make sure the word unaltered is included in that. And then the nonprofit committee was left off of the list, which I think is just a clerical error. So if it is proper, Mayor Clary wasn't in the room when the previous amendment was made. Is it proper to make amendments at the committee level?
So what can happen is that the committee can recommend an ordinance or resolution and recommend an amendment to come up later on.
Okay.
Typically, the chairman will then bring that up when it gets to the board level, or somebody who voted for it would be fine. But yeah, once it's submitted to the committee, it can't be altered except by the full board.
Okay. So we can make that amendment at the BOMA meeting. But we're certainly here to answer any questions that you have. The difference between, the reason that it's going to cost more is because we don't want it to be that much of an option. We want it to be treated as an essential function, just as payroll is. We want it to be that these meetings are recorded unless there's something like the bombing of the AT&T building that would be catastrophic and prevent such a thing from happening. We want this to be something that we can depend upon. Whereas right now, if, knock on wood, if Jason were to become ill and couldn't come, we'd be in a bad position. And we might not be able to make a recording happen. So we want it to be an essential function at this level. And as in the case of Mr. Waters, if you disagree, we respect that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking up this ordinance and reading it. Yes, we would like to just move ourselves into a more transparent environment. Today's society is using YouTube video. They chat their phones. They're usually online all the time. And we want to incorporate newer, younger members into city government and let them be involved in city government as well. Not only city government, but exponentially all government, so that they can make their voices heard and make sure that they understand. So regarding the Deer Committee specifically, Deer Herd Monitoring Committee, I still get emails because I'm the representative of that committee. I get emails, I get phone calls, I get all kinds of requests regarding what are they doing, when are they going to be doing it. And this would be a opportunity for us to reach out to the citizens and let them know what their government is doing. It's just another layer of transparency we're just trying to peel back and provide a good, consistent level of service to the citizens. It's redundancy. In any corporation, you're going to want redundancy. So that's the whole reason to bringing this ordinance forward. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And Alderman Collins, thank you for adding nonprofit committee. Is there any other committees that aren't on this list? Because I noticed the beer board is meeting
Yep.
simultaneously, and I don't see them on this list.
They're not. We did not include every committee on the list. We didn't include beautiful Hendersonville. We didn't include the Arts Council, Beer Board. I don't remember all of the ones that we eliminated, but there were some that we just felt, it's a matter of where you think the value is and what you think should be seen and what you shouldn't, and what isn't worth it. And we felt like anything that was a Board of Appeals belonged on the list, and then the others that you see. So there were others that I just can't remember. There were some that I was like, I've never even known them to have a meeting. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with what's on the list or off the list, but if we're gonna be transparent, we can't leave people off the list, because we feel they don't need to be there, because that's creating non-transparency. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how far it goes.
That's very valid, and I think, we could make amendments at the BOMA meeting to that. I'm sure that's going to be part of the process, is everybody's going to want a little something different.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes, you sure can. And I want to just jump in and appreciate adding all these committees. But I do want to ask if we have the bandwidth on the city server that can handle all the new videos and live streaming and storage and et cetera. I'm not an IT person, but I know that there's probably concerns with that as well.
So we have meetings right now that run simultaneously, and there's different capabilities, and we would need to flesh all this out. There's different capabilities in this room as there are in the other rooms, like the committee rooms that we meet in. We don't have the ability to do electronic voting in the other rooms. So this room really consumes a lot of the AV production time. The other rooms are more simple. We do have the bandwidth to put these things on YouTube. We live stream to YouTube right away. We keep, we have room on our servers to do that. But we would definitely need to flesh out, we don't have the capability to do electronic voting in all the rooms. And so if that was an option for all the rooms and all the committees, then we're talking about either centralizing them all into one room or offering, this type of a setup in all the committee rooms, which I don't know that that's the intent. But as far as our servers go and the IT background, we could support it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, please go ahead.
Thank you. In the budget that I proposed several months ago, I asked that a couple committees be added to the list of committees that are paid. We have a hard time finding volunteers for some of our committees. Virtually all of our committees, except for Planning Commission and Parks Board. And I spent an inordinate amount of time communicating with y'all, communicating with volunteers, communicating with organizations to try to find volunteers. And part of what comes back to me is that what they see isn't always, what they see that creates stress to the committee members isn't something they want to deal with. And a lot of that is because being televised adds some stress to what you're doing. And so my question for y'all is, have y'all considered what was taken out of my proposed budget in paying those committees, some of which are mentioned here? Have y'all considered paying the committee members?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I don't believe we have. I have not considered it yet. No, that's not even been in the scope. The scope was primarily just to get the videos online streamed and available to the public. As far as paying other volunteers, it wasn't, didn't even consider it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lee? Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been on two of these boards. I've been on the Deer Herd, and I've been on BCA. I think you probably get one or two come, listen. And we put it out every month. The mayor does, Jesse does, in the bulletin, that they're gonna meet a certain time, and they don't show up. So, you know, and I'm surprised that somebody hadn't mentioned how many times these meetings hadn't been canceled. I know two already. It's been canceled for this month. I just don't understand it, so I'll yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Garza.
Yeah. I'm the liaison with beautiful Hendersonville, and we had our meeting this morning, and it went well, and I, at the end, spoke. I didn't know they were not on this list, to be fair, but I spoke about the fact that, you know, in the future, this meeting may be recorded so the citizens can see it, and we will probably lose half the members. They don't want to be recorded. They want to be volunteers, and they want to come in and want to have meetings and open discussion. And even though they're trying to go by Robert's Rule of Law, many of them don't even know all those things, but they get the job done. And so I'm not saying we'd lose 6 of the 12. I'm not saying we'd lose 2 of the 12, but there's already apprehension that they don't want to be recorded. So you know what they're going to do? Leave the board. And it's hard to get people on these boards. It's not easy. It's real hard.
Well, I'm certainly all in favor of revisiting paying committee members. I think that would be an incentive. They're not going to get rich, but I can't remember the gentleman who was on a committee for 16 years. And that was a phenomenal effort on his part and a wonderful volunteer. But it would be nice to compensate these people for their time and away from their families. And
he was on BCA. He's a good man.
yes, he certainly was, and I wish I could remember his name. I'm going to just go off the record here about the Deer Committee. Mr. Waters, I invite you to Ward 1, 2, and 4. Please visit our wards, and you will see the issue that we have with deer. And it is something, Alderman Collins, you alluded to, it is going to be a hot topic item here very soon. And these meetings will be on Facebook Live. I don't know if we have those capabilities, but it is very concerning to the residents of half of our city is the deer and how we address the deer. So stay tuned and buckle up for that one. And if we have no more discussion, I would like to get a motion on ordinance 2023-22, amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code Title II, Chapter 1 regarding video recording of other board and committee meetings. Do I have a motion to accept this ordinance?
I'm not prepared to make a motion for this ordinance yet. It still needs more work done on it.
Me neither.
I think we're low on the cost projections of an employee and equipment. I'd like to see all of them on here.
Only, skip you through, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, please.
The only thing I'll say, if we're gonna move it to Boma, but not approved with this board, at least by not 2 of us anyway. Thank you.
Yes, perfect. I understand there is some work to be done on this. I would still like to get a motion so we can vote whether we decide to send it to Boma or not. So if I could get a,
Alderman Peterson? Or excuse me,
Yes.
Chairman. What we need is one or two of those, what you just mentioned, is either a motion to send on to BOMA with a positive recommendation,
Yeah.
or with a negative recommendation, or with a neutral recommendation.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, it's gonna go to BOMA regardless.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, committees can't hold those things up.
Oh.
No, he said that.
Okay.
okay, perfect.
Motion.
Yes. Mr. Waters did make the motion,
Thank you.
and,
I'm gonna tell my wife.
and I'm going to let Mr. Garza second that.
I'll make a second on that.
Okay, we have a motion and a proper second. All of those in favor of ordinance 2023-22 say aye. Aye. That fails 2-1. So that will go to BOMA with a negative recommendation.
It'd probably be cleaner if we actually did have a motion that stated that.
Pardon me?
If somebody made a motion to send it to BOMA with a negative recommendation.
Yes, I did.
Would you repeat that, Mr. Waters,
So what
please?
you're asking me to do, to repeat it?
Just tell us what, yeah, repeat your motion, please.
I make a motion that we send it to BOMA without a recommendation,
With a negative recommendation.
negative recommendation.
And do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a second? Yes. Thank you. Okay, let's move on quickly to other agenda item.
We need you to have a vote on that, please.
Yes, I would like all those in favor of sending ordinance 2023-22 regarding video recording of other board and committee meetings to BOMA with a negative recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously.
We just need some statement from the committee.
Yes.
And regardless, it's gonna go to the board, and, because committees can't hold anything up, but this is, thank you.
It would be negative.
Yes, and then we can anticipate discussion at BOMA on this one. Okay, thank you very much for everyone's help on that one. All right, let's move on to other agenda items. Number 5, this is the Arts Festival. And we have an arts festival, and but I don't know who's going to speak on that.
I'll speak, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, Jesse, please help me.
Sure. So this is more of just an FYI so that BOMA has the information. We'd spoken about having an arts festival, and the Arts Council has expressed interest in doing a festival. So a request for qualifications was put out, a copy of which is attached in your staff or in the packet. That's page 32 through 37. And then we only had one consultant who responded to that. That was Good Neighbor Festival. Their proposal is found in page 38, and it goes to page 42. So we are in the midst of preparing a purchase order and having Good Neighbor do a phase 1 assessment. So we looked at the festival in 2 phases to minimize the cost and the exposure to BOMA, because it is not an inexpensive festival to put on. So phase 1 is going to do some research, going to get some funding, solicit some vendors to be there, and then a report is going to come to BOMA on how they think the festival can do in terms of the interest that they've gotten, and in terms of whether the festival is going to be revenue neutral, lose money, make money. So a report will come to BOMA before BOMA has to make an appropriation to go into phase 2, because we do have to fund the management of this up front, and then we would recoup fees from vendors who show up, but BOMA would have to appropriate some funds first. So basically, this is going to allow Good Neighbor Festival and our Arts Council to go out, gauge interest, and then come back to BOMA with a report. They think that it will be possibly even a way to make a little money for the city, but that will come to BOMA. As of now, we have the budget dollars to go ahead and do phase one. Good Neighbor Festival reduced their price a little bit so that we didn't have to do any type of budget amendment. So we're ready to go. We're looking through the contract right now. So this is just an update on where we're at, and you can expect to see a report in a couple months from Good Neighbor Festival on the Arts Festival. And that concludes my report.
Yeah.
How much is that phase one that the city is going to be paying for?
I think it was right around $19,000.
19,000? And can that come out of the hotel motel fund?
You know, we actually had money appropriated from the Arts Council for it. It probably could. It did come out of the general fund. We have to keep a minimum balance in that hotel motel fund to pay our debt service.
Okay.
But in future years, I think if we get a healthy enough balance built up where we have some cushion in there, it's potential that at least the initial funding for this could come out of hotel motel, because certainly it's a tourism type activity.
And they're wanting to hold this next May, I believe, Mother's Day weekend, is that correct? At Saunders Ferry Park?
Yes.
And they anticipate 5,000 visitors?
Yes.
And do we have any other activities planned at Saunders Ferry Park Mother's Day weekend? So this would be a perfect opportunity to welcome 5,000 people into the park where we don't have anything already scheduled. And this, I believe, could become an annual event. This is very good for the city.
I happen to be the liaison, and I just wanted to point out, and Jesse may have to help me with my memory of this, but
Can you state your name and your address, ma'am?
yes, I can. My name is Rachel Collins, and I am the alderman for Ward 5, and my address is 1575 Hunt Club Boulevard,
Thank you.
Gallatin, Tennessee. Right?
Yeah.
We need to fix that. But I believe that between the allocation and the sponsorship money that has already been received in the finance department, the Arts Council has 18,500 or 19,500. So, and they're continuing to seek sponsorship, but the in hand, not pledged, but in our city bank account covers this contract or nearly covers it?
What we had appropriated with fiscal year 24 budget covers the phase one, you're correct.
Okay,
And there have been sponsorship dollars that have rolled in addition to the appropriation that we've given. But we haven't gone back for a budget adjustment on what we can spend.
I
But
see.
for the phase one, it's completely covered in the city's budget.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion about the Arts Festival? Okay, let's move on to item number 6.
We're going to make a motion to move it?
Well, I don't think we need to. It's just a discussion.
This is just discussion.
I have to, okay.
Yeah.
Item number 6, another discussion, future video and audiovisual needs from the city. We've kind of alluded to that a little bit, but Jason, would you like to speak on that for something that we're going to have to address going forward?
Sure. I can. I think Jesse hit it on the head pretty well when he talked about it earlier, is that what we're looking at is with the proposed changes that are then going to be required, we want the stability there. And also to make sure that there's a repeatability factor in coverage so that there's not a concern if, exhibits are going to be displayed during the meetings, that it's always a consistent standard that we hold. But that comes at a cost with the staffing and making sure that we always have backups, that we can consistently provide that. On our last meeting, you had asked kind of what the cost would be for a staff member. Looking at some of the research, just an AV tech, whether it was Gallatin, Vol State has a current opening right now. There's an opening out in Nashville. They both pay anywhere from $35 to $45. And if we're being really honest, that's about $18 an hour. It's about the same that you would get for a fast food restaurant. So you have to understand then the level of a candidate that you would get. So I do agree with Jesse in his assessment that to get a higher caliber person who's going to be producing, as well as, any videoing that we may have in future needs, this really kind of then looks forward to that. The other part is on the equipment. The $25,000 that he mentioned, that's just to get this room up to a level. We're not talking the other conference rooms. The Televic system that we have in place here was purchased in 2017. This setup is about another $50,000 or $60,000. So if we go and try and replicate that in other rooms, it comes at a higher cost. So think of it as a scalability. And while we're leveraging technology, there's a higher cost to technology that goes with it, plus the person to run it. So you're always, Jason can't be in two places at the same time. So when we do committees at the same time, you'll notice there are two different people in the room, right? There's one person in one room, one in the other, because he can't do it in both places. So
I think we have a lot more research to do on audiovisual, and also too, when you start paying someone the lower wages, which is a possibility, they jump job to job.
yes.
So you got to get someone good in here. And the other variable too is, we all talk about inflation, but what you buy this year is not going to cost the same next year.
Correct.
So it's a line item budget issue.
Yeah, I will add too, that live streaming and AV it's evolving. You look back at the YouTube videos I was looking at them today from 2017, and the quality is what we would consider poor, very poor, right? I mean, it's not even 10 years, and that quality would not be acceptable for today. So those needs, it's not going to be our city, it's going to be every city. More is online, more is going to continue to be online, more is going to continue to be, technologically advanced. We did run a test for a static display in BOMA, Planning Commission, I think a Parks Board too, where we said, hey, let's make a really simple setup so we can have multiple backups if, Mr. Gallo's gone. I don't think that it gives the level of production that BOMA would want or expect. It makes it really easy to set the room up, right, and to run the room, and we can provide stability because we could have 3 people or 4 people or 5 people trained to go in and hit a few buttons, and it's simple. But it doesn't give the full array of what you see when you actually come into a meeting room here. So, live streaming is one thing. Having the ability to do electronic voting, having the ability to switch the camera, show the exhibits, that's different. And I'm not saying it's valuable. It's valuable to residents, valuable to BOMA, but it comes at a cost too. So I just, I don't think a static display is going to work. So, if we continue to have a setup like we have in here, it works pretty well. There can be improvements to it, but it's even at a point where we need to back up for Jason anyway. A year and a half ago, we had someone from IT who left, and Jason has been a champion, and he's been here for every meeting, and we haven't missed anything, and that's because he makes it a priority. But we're even at a point where we really need someone just to back Jason up with our current level of production.
Thank you, Jason. Doing a great job. Any other discussion about that?
No.
That'll be something we need to probably talk about at the midterm budget adjustment, if not before. Okay, moving on, we skipped number 7. That was deferred. Number 8, other business. Do we have any other business to discuss tonight?
That's good.
I
Nope.
don't remember.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second that motion.
Well, that is that is good business. Got a motion to adjourn and a proper second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes. Thank you all very much.
Amen.